You are listening to the Chompcast, the official podcast of Sword Chomp and swordchomp.com. Thank you for taking time out of your busy life to listen to us. We have an amazing show today, the Pentultimate episode before Game of the Year.
Jesus Christ, are you still on that?
Yes, Pentultimate. What? Pentultimate.
The spell checker telling you were wrong, and then me telling you you were wrong, and Shea telling you were wrong.
Hold on!
None of those were hints.
Hey, Josh, you know what? Josh?
That was one of my favorite Morgan texts ever. It was perfect. Morgan trying to say penultimate twice, getting mad at his spell checker, and then yelling at us about how horrible his spell checker was. That it doesn't know how to incorrectly spell a word he wants to incorrectly spell.
Penultimate.
Penultimate. There you go. Penultimate. That's what I said. That's what I said.
No, it's not.
Clearly what I said. Go back to the tape. Go back to the tape.
Ultimate.
No. I was just slowing it down with expression.
Yeah.
That's all.
Everyone knows you have to slow down at a T. Especially if it's flashing yellow.
All right. On that note, we have a wonderful show today. You don't want to miss it because not only are we going to be talking about Game of the Year voted by you, the listener. Not only are we going to be talking about the Sonic the Hedgehog movie and those legs. Not only are we talking about Sea of Thieves and Monster Hunter World and all sorts of good stuff as we catch up for our big Game of the Year episodes that are coming out in just about a week, but the one and only Filipino Johnny Depp is doing the intros. That's right, once a year, Fish, aka the Filipino Johnny Depp, does intros. He takes over my job. I take a lot of pride in doing my intros, but you know what? It's a break for me. I get to relax and let Fish do his thing, and we just fucking see what happens. So it's going to be an amazing show. It's going to be pretty freeform today. It's kind of like that weird, like the last Friday before I got on Christmas break at school, and the teachers don't really want to give you any work, and everyone's just fucking lounging.
And so you watch Forrest Gump starting from different parts of the movie in every class?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's exactly it. So, and those days are fun. Those days are fun in their own special way. So sit back and relax and enjoy perhaps the most unprepared podcast of the year in all of its beautiful glory. Without further ado, I'm going to pass the reins off here. See, I'm handing you the reins, Fish, physically. Grab them from me.
Yar, thank ye.
Whoa, wow, those reins, we totally took on a whole new vibe for these intros.
Yes, pull the ropes closer to me. Sit down around me, everybody.
I will sit down.
Sit down, too. Yes.
I just spit my fucking soda, everyone.
Sit down. Yar, our first guest is a first pirate who was summoned up from the briny deep by the beating of a war drums. Claiming his very own spot upon the Sword Chomp vessel, he quickly ascended the ranks to his current title of the Lady Killer. Often found yelling to passing ships, "Arr! I swipe right on any women that be on ye boat." Shea, the Professor Layton.
Hey, Fish, you know what? I swiped right on you.
Attaboy. Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, because I love you.
Are you drunk, Shea?
I'm fucking hammered right now.
God
all that
damn
grog.
it.
I drank all the grog on our boat, and now I'm wasted.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you had a pretty good night, and you're prepared for this podcast then, so...
Yeah. In all seriousness, I actually went out with my teachers last night for end of the year party, and there was a surplus of delicious sake, and afterwards, I went to a hookah bar with a friend, and I could barely stay awake. So, and then I had to walk it off home, and it was the worst walk of my life.
Oh.
Because none of the fair maidens I swiped right on their vessels swiped right on me.
There's always a ship on the horizon for you, Shea. So don't get your hopes up just yet. Hang in there, buddy.
Wait, don't get your hopes up just yet? I don't think that's what you meant to say.
I don't know what else.
Those are ships of despair on the horizon.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I see.
Don't get your hopes up.
Obviously, he doesn't want
worse.
Shea to have his hopes up.
That's right. All the subsequent vessels we see are going to be packed full with landlubbers and skeletons and just terrible, terrible pirates.
I thought for a second Shea was going to say, I swiped right on your friendship because I love you there, buddy. But he didn't.
That works.
That would have been sweet. But our next pirate hails from the shores of finer worldly possessions, sailing the seas in search of the perfect jug of rum. His crewmates dare not undermine his plans, else they get thrown in the brig and forced to paint his toes, all 7 of them. He does not answer to the name, but his understanding of his simple title, Dad. Josh, the infallible Fowler.
Dad.
It's Dad.
Yeah. That works.
Yeah, see? It's tough, Fish. It's tough when you give an elaborate intro and all you get is, yeah.
It is a bit tough, but...
Yeah. Huh.
I figured,
Yeah.
You haven't
still in search of that.
He's not mad at
The
you.
legendary
He's just
rum.
disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, we probably would have found it already if we didn't have to pull over every 3 minutes for one of you fuckers. Little shipbirds back there whining, complaining the entire ride. We don't make any progress with you guys.
I know, and there's that one asshole who kept just wrecking the boat into the sandbar.
Oh, yeah.
Got so sick of him.
That was great.
Yeah. Inside joke for our listeners. Yes, we call Josh Dad in Sea of Thieves because he's always yelling at us. Like a good dad. You're going to bring back horrible memories of my childhood.
I will pull this thing over.
I will pull this boat over right now. Of course, we weren't stopping to pee. It was just because I was...
in the closet and beat me with a belt again, Dad.
Oh, God.
No, just a disclaimer, my dad never did that. I'm saying Josh would do that, not my own father.
Well, I don't think Josh is capable of that.
I mean, he wouldn't do that to his kids,
Yeah,
but...
I'd totally use a belt and get caught. That was also a joke, guys, just so we're aware here. Let's need to have disclaimers before all of these now.
Yeah, I was going to say, every joke has to be followed up with a disclaimer. Now that's where we're at as a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Of course. And last but not least, let us not forget about this lonely pirate. You can find him on the bow of the ship, trying to entice fellow sailors to recreate a scene held dear to his heart, silently singing to himself. Near, far, wherever you are.
I love how trying to do the pirate voice and sing Celine Dion, you turn into Yoda. I don't know exactly how that happens, but it's magical. And it makes me very happy.
It's so hoping for the warm embrace of a crew member. Spending most of his time
and
in the
crew
brigs.
member's member.
That too. brig singing shanties. Okay, let me just start over here. Spending most of his time in the brig singing shanties that are not known by other pirates, proclaiming that he has a new shanty style, a sort of freestyle, if you will. He holds no title, but is most commonly called Worthless, for he is a man of adventure. And he I'm sorry.
Hold it together, lad.
And he simply can't put a price on it. Most say, though, that is indeed not the reason they call him that. Morgan, that's not the bait worm, that's me pecker. Barnes.
I like it. That's not a bait worm, that's me pecker. Fishy, it's funny you mention that. Titanic, when I was just a wee landlubber, that was the first time I ever saw a woman's breasts. When I got it on VHS, and I stayed up all night flogging the one-eyed whale, if you know what I mean. Kate Winslet.
Yeah.
Who didn't, right?
That's right, yes.
How many of you out there push pause on your VHS and your VCR just to check out those boobies?
Actually, I think that was just you, Morgan.
I hope not. Make me feel very sad. Yeah, happy to be here, Fish. I had a joke I was going to do about how I was going to make a sheath. Do you know what a sheath is?
Mm-hmm. Something to hold another thing in?
Yeah, a
Usually
sexual
a
sheath.
Sword. Oh, a sexual one. Whoa.
Yeah, I had a joke about how I had to make a wooden sheath. A lot of men have to wear sort of like a sheath casing if they're not the most well endowed to please their woman. I had a friend I used to work with that had to wear one with his girlfriend, basically because he wasn't very big, so he would wear a sheath over top of his unit. And but I had this whole thing about how I was going to make a wooden sheath, but it was too splintery, and I was going to have to go catch jellyfish and cut off their gelatinous skin to sort of make like a silicone kind of thing. It was very elaborate. But your Titanic thing worked out.
Oh, okay. Good. Yeah, I actually specialize in those wooden sheaths, but you must have not had a properly made penis sheath for yourself made out of wood, because I sand those edges and all those splinters down.
It's still not an ideal, I almost said fabric. It's not an ideal sort of texture. So I'm trying to be inventive. I was the most inventive, depraved pirate out there. But yeah, it's good. I don't know if this is someone's first episode, they're gonna be really fucking lost. So that's good.
Indeed. That's where we want them. We want them lost, and then we're gonna just pull them in.
That's right.
Out of the dark forest that they mosey out of, I guess.
See, I was matching you with the pirate voice. No one else wanted to do a pirate voice. What's with that? Come on, guys. Where's your pirate voices?
I just fucking drank too much.
He's holding strong to that drunk voice. Can't get him out of it. He's locked in. Very special episode. Fish, do you have anything for yourself you want to say, or are you good? Usually there's like a follow-up, I am so-and-so from...
Oh, yeah. And I'm Fish.
I guess I did already kind of introduce you. So
Yeah.
I introduced you introducing us so you could introduce yourself. It's a vicious circle.
Yeah, it's kind of like Inception.
Yeah, not really at all, but yeah.
No, yeah.
Penultimate.
Yes, Pentultimate. What? Pentultimate. But yeah, we do, let the tape show that I did not say Pentultimate. Yes, Pentultimate. What? Pentultimate.
I'm replaying you saying Pentultimate every time you insist you didn't during this episode.
You know what I meant. No,
I don't. I specifically know that you didn't mean it too, because you sent us a message complaining about your
Penultimate.
spell check being wrong.
Hey, we're learning things every day. Penultimate. There we go.
Man, even your phone translator is drunk too, Shea. How is that even?
That almost sounds like me.
Penultimate.
Penultimate. No, but it's gonna be a fun show. Thank you, Fish, for doing the intros. It's always fun. My side hurts.
Pleasure.
From just
sorry.
so many. Hopefully, those jokes weren't too inside for people, but they were good. Can never be too inside for me. But no, we do have a really fun show today. Like I said, it's gonna be a little off the walls. We have a great topic of the show too, which is basically 2018 in review. Basically, we want to look back on the year and sort of talk about the things that we'll remember the most about this year going forward. And we're going to get help from the @SwordChomp community. Our Instagram community is amazing. We got some good comments I want to read. Things that really stuck with people as well. So great topic of the show. Some hilarious polls like the whole Sonic leg creepiness. And of course, we're going to talk some more games, including Sea of Thieves. Now, that's one of the cool things is we've been waiting to talk about Sea of Thieves with our good buddy Shea. Now, I know a lot of you out there, a lot of people in general just don't get the whole Sea of Thieves thing, so we'll address that later. But we've been waiting to talk to Shea about Sea of Thieves for many, many, many moons. But let's get right to the topic of the show. 2018, a year in review. So I mean, I guess we can kind of go round robin here and see if there's a couple things that are really going to stick out to you all when you look back on this year. Now, I'm going to kind of set the quality of the games aside because I think that's going to get talked a lot about in our Game of the Year show. Obviously, there's so many great games this year. That's not really, I think, that interesting of a thing to focus on for this sort of a thing. So we're going to kind of stretch outside the box a little bit. And I will kind of kick things off to kind of show you what I mean, and you guys can take it wherever you want. We're just going to have fun with it. I wrote down two big things, but the first thing I'm going to remember is the redemption arc of No Man's Sky. That made me really happy on a very personal note, because that was a game that was just obliterated in the media. And even though I loved it a lot a couple years ago, a lot of people left that game for dead, and it had a very strange trajectory. And then Sean Murray and the team, really buckled down to make that game, just investing in free updates. And they've been working on it for 2 years. And then they were going to launch No Man's Sky next, which was supposed to be the next big evolution of that game. It launched on Xbox One as a brand new package, basically. Everyone who had originally bought No Man's Sky got the updated version of the game. When we polled our listeners, I was even surprised because I still get a lot of No Man's Sky, either skepticism or hate, but our listeners even voted that they thought it was overwhelmingly like one of the biggest redemption stories that they can remember ever. And that kind of warmed my heart because that was a game that meant a lot to me, and it was received very poorly. And it was nominated for a Game Award for Best Ongoing Game. It was nominated for a Steam Award. I was just reading about that today, actually. And I'm still having a lot of fun with that game. I got to play No Man's Sky with Shea for the first time. After all of our jokes and our kind of back and forth for the past couple years, we got to play No Man's Sky for a couple nights. We had a lot of fun, just kind of exploring and looking at weird alien sharks and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was good. I agree with you. I think at the beginning that game really received a lot of shit, and I think it was warranted due to the poor release of the game and the promises that were not lived up to. I don't really want to argue though, like that point. I want to excuse me, I'm sorry. I want to highlight more the fact that they've really come around. They've made a lot of this additional content. And the biggest part about that is it's been free this entire time. That's kind of the marvelous thing about it, is you can get this game for fairly cheap now because it had such a piss poor launch, and it actually includes all of this free additional stuff. Granted, you could argue that it should have been there in the first place. I don't agree with that. But they've added all this additional content because they want to show that they care about the fans, they care about this game. And I think it's been for the better. They've definitely bolstered their image. I think they made good on the promises that they initially made, and I think that they've shown that they made a mistake and they rectified it. So yeah, I think it's been a great redemption story. definitely one of the better ones in gaming history, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And it meant a lot to me. So that's the one thing I will always remember about this year. And playing, I have some other stuff about No Man's Sky related that I'll save for Game of the Year because it's pretty entertaining. Spoilers, No Man's Sky Next will not be on my Game of the Year list because technically speaking, it is a 2-year-old game. Even though I tried to scare Josh at the beginning of the year and told him that it was going to be on my list, but I was just fucking with him.
Mm-hmm.
I did play the fuck out of that game this year, but like I said, if it's a new year, I like to honor new games. So, but that was a really beautiful story, heartwarming story for me in particular. Something I think even a lot of people on the outside looking in will remember. So yeah, that's my first main check mark up and down. 2018 in review. No Man's Sky turning around. Let's see. Shea looks eager there. There's eager eyes looking back at me.
I'm always eager, baby.
What about you?
One of the things I'm going to remember this year is the whole crossplay thing that happened this year. And honestly, as much shit as we give Fortnite nowadays, Fortnite had a really big point to play with that. Like that game is a very big reason why we have finally gotten crossplay with PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. It's something that fans have wanted ever since the online gameplay first came out for consoles, and it's finally happened, and that's a big part to do with Fortnite. So I'm actually really happy. It's not something that we've personally made use of yet because usually the games we play we have for the same system, but in the future, I mean, it opens up so many possibilities. You know, Morgan now primarily games on his Xbox One. I primarily game on my PS4. Fish primarily games with whatever's in his pocket at the time.
Couple nickels.
Playing some pocket pool.
Stick of gum.
Yeah, yeah, that too. God. But
my cell phone.
Yeah, that too. Playing Brave Exvius again, but I think it opens the doors for so much more possibilities in the near future, and I'm really excited for that. And it kind of has to do with, you know, just PlayStation in general, not just that, but also them kind of finally getting rid of that large ass fee to change your gamer, or not your gamer tag, your PlayStation name, because you used to never be able to change that name, and unless you pay an exorbitant amount of money just to change a name. But they've kind of pivoted on that, and they've decided to, you know, give players the opportunity to fix XXX Gun Ninja 69 XXX to something a little bit more respectable name-wise. So, just like PlayStation's coming around on a lot of their idiocies, really, is the big thing there for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has been...
Go ahead, Josh, sorry.
Kind of... Like you said, Fortnite has been a big part of why that push has happened the way it has. It's just been way more feasible for everyone to see that as something that is actually wanted whenever people are showing them how wanted it is. But yeah, it's been really nice to be able to play Sea of Thieves together without having to buy an Xbox One.
It's been very nice.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I'll take it. It's still a bump. There's still some things like two big games, Monster Hunter World and No Man's Sky, still don't have cross-platform. There's still a lot of games out there that I hope make that jump because, you know, like Shea said, we had fun with Fortnite. Like, my whole thing with Fortnite has not been that it's not a good game. Like, I actually think it's a damn good game, and it's fucking free, and we talked a lot about it, so you can go back and listen to those podcasts if you're curious. But it's just that it just kind of it's too much. Like, just the people I see playing Fortnite all the time now, and I'm like, you know, whatever makes you happy. I'm just like, sometimes just scratching my head, like, there's so many good games out there. Why do you want to play Fortnite for your whole life, man? Or woman? You know, it just kind of, I just don't get that side of it.
Well, it's free, so.
I know. Free.
Well, that, and I feel like it scratches. I mean, we're not supposed to be getting on Fortnite, but it just scratches the itch of kind of like what Minecraft does with the world building a little bit, and the basic itch of something like a Call of Duty or something.
Well, yeah, especially with them adding a creative mode. It seems like they're definitely leaning into that. Instead of
yeah, makes sense. But
I mean, I get it. Yeah, it's just one of those things. Yeah, it is what it is. I like to see more games go cross-platform because, like you said, it's amazingly helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's many. I could see Fish playing No Man's Sky on my Xbox. It was telling me Fish was on his computer playing No Man's Sky, and I could talk to him. We were talking on the Xbox Live system, but we couldn't play together. I was like, this is fucking wild. It's just it's odd, but I don't know. It's a step in the right direction. And, like Shea said, it's going to take, believe it or not, those games that a lot of people are disgusted by, like Fortnite, are going to be the ones that make it happen because they're so big that you cannot ignore that big swinging dick when it comes in the room. So I agree with that. Moving mountains with those big swinging dicks. Speaking of big swinging dicks, Joshua Fowler, what you're thinking about this year, what do you got?
Sorry, I had to set that down for a moment.
Sound effect.
Probably one of the coolest things, I mentioned this briefly, I think it was last week, maybe the week before, but this year I've seen a lot more games really embrace accessibility in cool ways instead of just dumbing down the game with an easy mode. Being able to just granularly change what is giving you a difficulty in a game between like Celeste difficulty options, crosscode head, accessibility options like that as well. The Xbox accessibility controller came out this year as well. It seems like it's really a push for people in this year, in a way that I've not seen in the industry as a whole before. And I think that's really cool, and I'm really excited seeing that going forward, just because it has been an issue. I mean, gaming has always had some sort of dexterity component. Even if you're just playing, a visual novel, you have to be able to push the buttons. And like because it's interactive, making sure as many people as want to can interact with it is really cool. And that's probably one of my biggest takeaways as a whole from this year, is just seeing that be a thing all over. Spider-Man even did this with allowing you to turn off button mashing and just be able to hold a button. Not a big change. It doesn't really change the difficulty at all, but it sure as hell makes a difference if, you can't tap a button easily.
Yeah. Shit, I wish I would have turned that on. That sounds nice.
Yeah, and that's been probably one of my favorite things just in gaming in general coming out of this year, and it's been really cool to see that happen.
Yeah, there's even games that I'm sorry, Shea, were you to say something? I didn't want to interrupt you. I apologize.
I was just saying, yeah.
Oh, okay. I really like it when games approach easy mode in a non sort of a way that doesn't look like it's sort of making you feel like you're somehow lesser or weak or embarrassed or whatever. Like, for example, Into the Breach, I was talking to one of our friends, Kuna Matata, a friend of the show. He's been a co-host on here in the past. He just recently picked up Into the Breach and on our recommendation, and he was playing on normal and he was enjoying it, but it was really tough for him. And I was like, dude, most people I know start on easy, and it's nothing to be embarrassed about. I did it. Because easy, it's actually still very tough, and it gets you used to how that game works. You can keep anything, like your progress stays with you. It doesn't, like the game doesn't penalize you whenever you change difficulties. And
it just has a different set of medals for how hard it is when you play it, which was really cool. It's not like it's just this lesser thing. It's like, lets you learn all the mechanics and stuff, because otherwise it can really kick your ass if you go into it, thinking you're a badass and not really knowing what the systems are first. And just having that is really cool. Another one, this was just before the year ended, so it didn't quite make the cut, but Uncharted Lost Legacy was the first game in that series to let you change the combat difficulty and the puzzle difficulty independently. so you didn't have to.
Oh, okay.
So you didn't have to tone down the bullet sponges and then get hints for everything as soon as you walked into a puzzle room. So yeah, it's just
really
like
cool.
that sort of thing is definitely becoming a trend that I'm really, really pleased by.
And even games like No Man's Sky that we were talking about earlier, like I personally wouldn't play it this way because I like the survival elements, but you can just play it on creative mode.
Mm-hmm.
Like my daughter will do that. Yeah. And it's basically infinite supplies. You don't have to worry really about ever dying.
Yeah.
Go whatever you want.
Yeah.
So.
And that is cool. That is really cool.
Yeah, it's cool that it's cool that it's an option.
I'm glad that, to go along with Josh's line, that I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong with me today. I'm happy to see that there's been this trend, not just even this year, but the past few years, of pushing to allow more inclusiveness in gaming, because it's difficult for people with disabilities, and of course they want to be a part of the phenomenon. They want to be a part of like what's happening in the world and culture and stuff, and some of them appreciate that whole gaming or nerd culture, whatever you want to call it. And to see like that initial wave or movement with kind of like the Wii and eventually the Kinect, which unfortunately failed, and VR has been kind of pushing that too. All these little things have kind of been pushing to allow for more inclusiveness in gaming with people who have physical disabilities. And it's cool to see that some of these developers and companies are actually pushing forward with that. I think it's a brilliant and wonderful thing, and I hope that I guess the casual, or not so much casual, just the gamers who, you know, maybe don't have physical disabilities can appreciate that within what's going on right now. You know, like there's a lot of shit talking on VR, and I guess some of it is justified, but also realize that, you know, maybe VR is also kind of a vessel for people who do have, you know, physical disabilities, or, you know, like they're pushing these other things for people who have physical disabilities to be able to play video games. And I hope that there's just more support for that going into 2019. And I fully 100% believe that there will be enough support for that to become a thing, you know, for people to keep pushing forward with that, because I think it's a wonderful thing. I think there should be more inclusiveness with that. I think it should be available for as many people as possible. You know, we look at kind of the history of gaming. It was seen as such a luxury item when it first came out. It was expensive and only the rich families had it. And now it's become a thing where it's more available for everyone. And I think that's mostly a good thing. I'm sure there could be some cases for it being a bad thing, but overall, I think it's a great thing. Yeah. And to make it even more available for people, especially people who, you know, have disabilities, I think that's a wonderful thing. So I'm really excited that there was that push this year, and I'm hoping that it just keeps going into 2019.
I think it's kind of the natural evolution of it. I mean, it was a big thing when voice acting became popular in games, that there were a couple years there where subtitles were not standard, and that quickly was solved. And then seemed like it was kind of the only step anyone took for a long time. And then it felt like, you know, last year people started thinking maybe we should have colorblind modes in here. And then this year there have been just huge steps going forward in general. And I think it's definitely the direction as a whole we're headed. So I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Me too.
Cool. What about you, Fish?
Well, I will remember 2018 as the year I officially became a Rare fan.
Ooh.
Yeah, a very rare one indeed. Actually, Sea of Thieves was indeed the game that got me into that developer, even though, you know, I never got into Donkey Kong or I enjoyed 007, and I didn't know that they actually developed that game until recently, but
GoldenEye?
For shame.
GoldenEye, yeah, I didn't know that Rare actually developed that game.
Yeah, that was a Rare game.
That's so weird that they did that. I don't know if they actually made any other first-person shooters after that, but I think that was
they did
the only one.
Didn't they do a Perfect? I think they did a Perfect Dark on the Xbox 360.
Oh,
I can double check on that, but I'm pretty sure they did. So Perfect Dark came out and it was a follow-up and it got great reviews, but it didn't really catch on like GoldenEye, the Perfect Dark on the 64. And then there was another Perfect Dark game that came out on the Xbox 360 as well.
Yeah, and that one kind of fell prey to a lot of things that were going on at the industry at the same time. Like, it had yellow arrows on the floor at all times showing you where to go. Yeah.
The first Perfect Dark is one game that I just really wish I had experienced when it first came out, because I went back to that game has like a 97 Metacritic, and I went back and played it years later, and it was just too old. It was too old and too ugly, and it was. I just wish I had. That's why I love playing things when they first come out. That's tangential, but so why was it such a big deal that you like Rare now? Like what?
I don't know. Like all these Donkey Kong fans, like I feel like I like to. Exactly. Yeah. I like to think that there's somebody out there just like me who never dug Banjo-Kazooie or Donkey Kong and just went through their whole life not playing any Rare games and not giving a shit about the developer.
So somebody out there with bad taste, basically?
If you want to put it that way, maybe. Yes.
Just fuck with you. I really need a drum sound effect. We can't keep doing this without a little drum sound. Shea needs to get live in-house drums, and every time we drop a banger,
especially since your but is actually but every time. I don't know why.
Oh yeah, the McDonald's thing. Yeah.
It's the precursor to McDonald's. I'm loving it. He's trying to say he loves the joke, but
okay,
doesn't quite have the jingle down.
Yeah, I was just thoroughly surprised that, Rare could come out with a game in 2018 and I don't know, like they were able to like add in like certain little Easter eggs to their older games, and I still got the reference because they were such popular games. Like in game, you actually eat bananas for health, which is great. And I'm guessing that's an ode to, Donkey Kong. But...
No, that's an ode to Perfect Dark.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting.
There was a lot of fan art related to that.
Yeah. He had a big banana.
Oh. Is that why you have to eat it with the stem?
What? Sorry.
Pirates never had time to peel those things.
Never. Especially when you're looking down the gullet of a megalodon. I know.
Staring down the gullet of a megalodon. That's a horrible Shinedown reference. Is it even weird to you, Fish, that Sea of Thieves is actually very poorly received by the public and critics? That's like the strangest part of it.
It is strange. Like at this point, like I feel like the people that I make fun of for liking Donkey Kong, I feel like now I'm on that other end of the spectrum where like, hey, why don't you guys like this game? What the fuck is wrong with you? Well, and it feels kind of bad now. Like, I kind of have sympathy for you. All the people who love Diddy Kong, or... Wait, actually, they did Diddy Kong Racing, so...
Yeah, they did. Yeah, that's another one, yeah.
Yeah.
They've done really good stuff. Like, I think they did, Viva Pinata, which is a very underrated game. That's, they got some weird gyms, and then they disappeared for a while.
Yeah.
But you know what, Fish is, I don't know. It's tangential. There's a million things I was going to say there, but that is interesting. I would say that it's not that you hate those games from Rare. They're probably just, it's harder for you to go back and play older games. I believe that maybe at the time the context could have been different. It's just impossible to say. I thought for sure you were going to like Donkey Kong Country. I was wrong. I was very surprised.
I still think you should go back and play play Tropical Freeze, since you didn't have a Wii U at the time.
I'd be curious about that.
Because it solves a lot of the usability problems that were around in the first batch that were just how you did games back then. It just makes it a little more accessible, even if it does get really hard at the end. Like
it's fucking hard, yeah.
Yeah. It's much more accessible as far as something you can just kind of pick up and play and not feel like you're ever losing progress. So
It's only like $40, but I would send it to you, but I don't have a physical copy of it. So sadly.
Yeah, I mean, that is the only system I have right now, and I have no reason to actually play it on the Switch at this point, so. And you've been recommending, God.
Recommendating?
Yep.
Recommendating.
Oh, recommendating. That's a new kind of dating. That's
some serious dating.
That's some fucking heavy dating, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to get into that shit.
Gotta wreck them real good.
You get a wreck 'em rating. So this guy wrecked me so good. 5 stars.
Mm-hmm. It's got like hair metal sound effects for all the swiping.
Swipe right! Little guitar solo.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you didn't wreck him, he didn't wreck me good at all. Wah, wah, wah. Okay, interesting. Very interesting. Man, it's gonna be fun to talk about Sea of Thieves later, because that's just one of the most fascinating stories and games in a long time to me. There's always one polarizing game every year. All right, well, I have a bunch of good listeners' comments here, and then if there's something really important, you guys, you want to mention that's not brought up, then let's do it. But I think that they might hit some of the big ones for us. So let's whip them out. So, by the way, every Thursday, it's going to be a little weird here at the end of the year because Game of the Year, and then we're going to take a week off. But we're going to have 2 big Game of the Year podcasts for your feed to make up for it. But normally, every Thursday, we'll have a question of the week on the @SwordChomp Instagram page. And if you chime in and we like your comment, we'll read it, discuss it on the show. It's a good time. So this week, of course, it was looking back on 2018. And these are some of the comments that we got. Up first. That's my favorite sound effect. They're calling into the show. Boing, boing. Corin Space said the most memorable thing for 2018 for me was how badly Bethesda dropped the ball on Fallout 76. And I think that's going to be a big one for a lot of people. The whole Bethesda debacle.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's definitely memorable, if nothing else. Kind of seeing them swing so hard and miss by so wide a mark.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's a little perplexing because anytime I hop on social media to see whenever Bethesda posts something, all I see are fans talking about how we want more of what Oblivion was like. We want more of what Morrowind was like. And then through the past few years, they would be like, oh, we're re-releasing Skyrim Special Edition Remaster for the new system. And people are like, we don't fucking want Skyrim. We want the next game. Or for Fallout, we want the next game. And they've been pushing the carcass of Skyrim for years. I think that was kind of their first problem. But, it's...
I like to imagine Skyrim as a carcass.
I love Skyrim. Don't get me wrong. I fucking love Skyrim. But they've been pushing that corpse for a long time. And I think that was the first, indicator of big issues. And then initially Elder Scrolls Online flopped. Now it has a little bit of cult support, but for the most part, it was kind of a bust.
Yeah.
And then, Fallout 4 came out, and it was still a decent game, but it just was not the caliber of 3 or New Vegas. New Vegas, which wasn't even created by Bethesda, it was created by Obsidian. Mm-hmm. They added this world-building element into Fallout 4, which was kind of cool. A lot of people did like it. A lot of people didn't like it. If anything, it was definitely something different. I respect it. I didn't appreciate it. But Fallout 4 just didn't have the same feel to 3 in New Vegas. Fallout Shelter was kind of like,
Didn't they...
all right, this is going to tide us over for the next game, I guess. And what it tied us over into was Fallout 76. So it's just like there've been all these little mistakes, and it's kind of really culminated into Fallout 76, a game that literally no one wanted. And what we've already talked about that to death, so I'm not going to rehash that. Fans did want an online Fallout game to be paired with the main actual game of what people love. You know, this like single player adventure, the single player experience, but they wanted to do that with a friend. Which kind of, you know, is a bit of an oxymoron, I guess, if you want to look at it that way, but just how bad this game is done. For as big of a company as Bethesda is just mind-boggling. It really is. And we've talked about it to death, so I don't want to go into too much detail, but I've always been the Bethesda fanboy on the podcast. I've been the biggest fanboy out of all of us. For as long as I've known you guys. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's been one thing after another lately in the past few years with this company, and I'm starting to lose faith in them, and that's fine. They don't need to worry about losing my income. I'm one person, and I'm a very small person, so it doesn't really matter. But in the grand scheme of things, if they're losing a bunch of people like me, these hardcore Bethesda enthusiasts, they're losing all these people, it's gonna affect the amount of money they make. It's gonna affect the games from here on out, and it's worrisome because I think they wanted to do something creative, and they're shooting for the moon, and they missed the trajectory. They were aiming for the moon. They ended up going towards the sun. Is the best way I can put it. So hopefully this doesn't deter them from making more risky choices. I just hope that they do it in a better way. I don't know how to exactly word that. I just hope that the risks they take follow somewhat along the lines of what fans are looking for while not compromising their own creative control. Is the best way I can word that.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Sounding off on Bethesda, the number one Bethesda fanboy. Well, he's the ex-Bethesda fanboy on the crew now. In dark turmoil. Okay, fair enough. I agree. And as someone look, when that game is cheap if it's on Game Pass or something, I'll gladly boot it up and play it with you guys. But I think from the outside in, you don't even have to have played that game to see the impact that it's had in the news. So that's a good one. Freaking Tony J said, I'm with Fish on the Monster Hunter hype train. I'm on that hype train too. Come on, freaking Tony. Running around the team, tracking and hunting a giant beast was a great new gaming experience for me. Also glad I found you guys in 2018. Aw, that's so nice.
Aw.
Mm-hmm. Glad you found us.
Thanks, motherfucker. I'm just kidding. Seriously, thank you.
No matter how nice you say motherfucker, it always sounds a little, it's got that little bite to it, Aw, motherfucker. Let's see here. Red Blue Gaming, he named a bunch of games, but the second part of his comment I wanted to read, it says, my 2-day bachelor party at PAX West 2018, getting Red Dead Redemption 2 at my wedding and playing it with my groomsmen before the wedding. That's pretty cool. It's kind of a special wedding. On my wedding day, we all played Call of Duty Black Ops and we all were miserable. So
I think it's a really cool experience. I read that story on Instagram, and that's a really cool experience to have with your groomsmen. It's like, I think that would probably be, in my opinion, getting married, I think that'd be better than a bachelor party, is like right before the wedding, getting this awesome game that you get to play with your dudes and just chilling and broing out before your life is over, essentially. I think that is a really good way to send it off.
Yeah. It'd be a great part of it. If we did that instead of taking Fish to a strip club, he would chop my dick off. So I don't know if you could replace the bachelor party, but
yeah, why not have both?
I was gonna say, just bring the bachelor party, the strippers into your house. Just play some video games while they're doing their thing, I guess.
That would be great. Playing, renting out like a private strip club and just like having like video games set up there. That would be fantastic. That would be so good. Have a Smash. We could bring Smash Brothers in there.
I wouldn't bring anything into a strip club. I'd have the strippers come to me because you don't know what's all over those floors and walls and.
Yeah,
that's fine.
It's yeah. Never
Part
mind.
of the experience.
I'm just gonna leave it there.
When's the last time that strip club has seen a can of Lysol? Is my question.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, come on. Come on. That's a stereotype. Come on. Some strip clubs have buffets, man.
Yeah. Besides, most of the ones Fish goes to are clean. He brings his own Lysol.
He's the guy who brings his own wipe. Like a Lysol wipe.
His wet naps. He's like, she
slides
puts the
his chair
bill
up to the bar and wipes down the
in
rail
between
in
her
front of him
boobs,
there.
and he's like, "Excuse me," takes the wet nap, wipes her breasts down.
Now that they're
It's
clean,
weird now.
These boobies are clean.
It's weird, Mom. Come on. Strippers smell like fucking heaven. You know what? Every time now
Fucking
Fish has that
heaven,
problem.
yes.
Every time Fish pulls out a Lysol wipe, now he gets an erection. It's real weird. It's like his brain's all fucked up.
on the plus side though, his kitchen, fucking
So clean.
immaculate.
That's
Except that when he gets to the end, he's so hard that he makes it messy again. So it's it's a vicious cycle. Let's see here. Sector 7 item shop. I will definitely remember being called a cougar on the Sword Chomp podcast by a one Shea Layton. She really said that. Remember when you called our friend Sector 7 a cougar on the podcast?
What'd I do?
He was out of it at the time. You can't hold it against him.
What did I call her?
I can't tell if you're fucking with me or not.
I really am not fucking with you.
You called her a cougar.
Oops.
Oops.
It's a compliment. It's a compliment. She said, "Good news is I've had a birthday since then, so now I'm a senior citizen." That's a joke, guys. Come on, get
Silver
some laughs
cougar now.
here. Need to get a laugh track for you fuckers. Also being privy to at Fish Sticks Fish. Sword Chomp sword shenan. I'm reading this all straight up the comment. Sword Chomp shenanigans were pretty great. Much love, bromies. Glad to call you my friends. Friend of the site who made the epic art that we have and has been a guest on the podcast. We need to have her back. Last time she was on the show, she was a bit distracted by family. So we need to have her back on so she can give us her full. No, she can give Fish her full and undivided attention.
I don't know if I can handle that.
Not many men can. You should reverse it, Fish. You got to be confident. Be like, I don't know if she can handle my full attention.
That's what I meant.
The BAC.
Oh God.
Say it with your chest, boy. Say it with your chest, boy.
Trombako 1029 said, definitely Stan Lee's cameo and his passing. He actually didn't put that in there, but I'm assuming that he or she was referring to that. Did not see it coming at all, and it was wonderful. It was the year of Spider-Man for a lot of people with that movie that just came out that's doing really good.
Yeah.
And then the Avengers, and then of course the Spider-Man game, and then sadly Stan Lee passing away. So
yeah.
Always a bummer. But you know what? I'm sure he had a very full and amazing life. He seemed happy until the end. He lived. God, he lived a long, long time, and he did a lot of great things. So made a lot of people happy.
Wait, that was the guy who always did cameos in Marvel movies, right?
Yeah.
He did everything. Like, he basically never turned down a role for almost anything. Like, he was just that invested in seeing other people create stuff, which is just really cool about him for as successful as he was. So
yeah,
that's just an interesting way to make a career, just doing cameos and nothing else. I'm just kidding.
I actually saw this. I don't know how I found it the other day, but it was like in the God of War 3 documentary. Stan Lee came to Santa Monica Studios and he was like walking around and stuff, and he was just blown away by what they were doing there. He's a big supporter of the gaming industry for sure, and art. Big supporter of art in general. A lot of people used to look at gaming in sort of its own separate thing, and people like Stan Lee are good at helping bridge that gap.
Mm-hmm.
Reverend Rock and Roll said 2018, my wife and I moved into a house all to ourselves, and I was able to set up my game room and every console and game that I've had throughout the years.
Yeah. You finally kicked out the kids, huh? It's a good plan.
Right.
Good plan.
Yeah.
Just get your own house. Send the kids somewhere far away.
Get them packing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. That's like still like 20 years away from ever happening for me, so...
Longer if you still can't learn how to unroll one of those condoms.
You're on the road to having another kid yourself, Josh.
No, I'm not.
All right. We'll see. Get those tubes tied. Or your snip. Get your snip tied.
My snip tied.
Tie your dick into a bow. Just tie it up.
Tie my snip.
Tie it up.
Okay.
Snip. Reverse vasectomies can have a toll on somebody. Snip. All right. Teddy50 said, man, God of War was such an epic game. Going to Spider-Man to get... So, sorry, I didn't mean to rush to his comment. Basically, he was talking about how God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2, and Assassin's Creed, basically it was a great year for games. Mr. Hicks 2299 said all the great games that came out this year. Also mentioned a lot of the same games. Good friend of the show, Mr. Hicks. We love you out there. JP Horshada said Monster Hunter finally breaking through. That's actually a good one, even though a previous commenter mentioned it. Monster Hunter finally broke through in the States after all these years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they caught me in that net.
Mm-hmm. Caught me in that net too. Just took a little longer because the online is so fucking terrible.
Mm.
No,
but I got there. It is. No, I take it back. The single.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing they were able to pull that off on the Dreamcast. It just wasn't a Dreamcast game, so there's that.
It's funny. I was listening to the 8-4 Play podcast, and they're like big Monster Hunter guys, and they're over in Japan. And somebody said something. They were talking about the same thing, how awful it was. And somebody made a good point, though. They were like, if Capcom had come out and put better messaging behind it and said, look, the single-player campaign is better to just play by yourself but it's a great game to play with your friends for expeditions, post-game content,
kind of like the end-game stuff.
Yeah. Because they designed these cutscenes, and for some reason they're ass backwards about how they do it, and you can't do it with a friend, even though every other game in existence right now lets you do that. So it's fucking weird. So there's no excuses there. But if you play the campaign alone, it's been great for me. So the messaging on that is bad, and the design is bad. But they'll learn. Right, Fish?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I'm sure they'll learn from their mistakes on that.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's a lot of fans out there that said, yeah, I wish I could have went through this whole campaign together with a friend instead of going through it solo, then eventually get into the end game to where I can enjoy multiplayer, which does indeed suck that, you can't go.
Well, that's what killed me. We were playing together, and it was a big hassle to play with my friends, and I'm like, fuck this. I don't want to grind this on my own. But it was just confusing because if the online hadn't been so bad, I probably would have liked that game a lot more, Yeah,
and I'm sure they'll probably learn from that mistake and streamline that a bit, because there a lot of people who did get into the multiplayer definitely did get into the multiplayer and enjoyed it with friends.
Well, it's not that the multiplayer's bad. It's playing the campaign in multiplayer is awful because you have to progress the same level as your friend. Otherwise, you can't do it.
Well, that's the thing is like you have to get to a certain cutscene. You have to watch a cutscene.
Some cases you have to wander 10 minutes into an area, watch a cutscene, and then you can finally boot up with your friend, and by the time they get in there, it's just a fucking mess.
I'm sure they'll streamline that.
Yeah, they either need to streamline it so it works better, or even possibly just an easier fix would be to not even have it turned on. So you just like can't even queue with a friend during that single player campaign. One or the other, because it's like the middle road that's just frustrating.
Or get rid of the story because it's fucking awful anyway. Like, nobody gives a shit about the Monster Hunter story. Not one person in the whole world. Not one.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Which is too bad because the lore and the monsters and everything about that world is fantastic. It's just, it's too bad. Anyways, they'll fix it. I have confidence, and if they don't, then we're gonna bash them from here to Kingdom Come. Right, Fish?
That's right.
All
Bash them with our great sword and our light bow guns, and stick them with our daggers.
Great swords. So yes, Monster Hunter breaking through finally in America is pretty fucking cool, which in my opinion was a result of timing, January being slow, and finally putting it on the PS4 and making it super fucking pretty. It's an incredible game too, but I mean, they just made that thing really appealing to the generation that we're in right now. But I have some thoughts on that. I can save that for later on. Couple more quick ones here. Eric .o said, actually, no, these are return comments. I apologize. Matt BG said, one thing that really impressed me this year in gaming, apart from the obvious things like how great the games were, was Detroit Become Human. That game was really good. Wow, we got a sleeper here for Detroit 2 Human. Just to show we're equal opportunity here, we're going to read that comment and give it the respect it deserves.
Okay.
I will say this. First half...
I was giving it the respect it deserves.
Hey, I like the first half of Detroit Become Human, and then the second half just lost me.
That intro mission is good. It is solid.
The first mission. No, there was some good... Like, the performance from that AI was really good. There were some good characters in there. It just kind of went off the rails. Like all of his David Cage stuff.
Yeah. Once the story starts branching out too much, it starts kind of... Once he has too many options to keep track of, it just doesn't work as well. Like, I've always felt like the beginnings of his games are better. And he just has a hard time carrying it all the way through. Yeah. Because he can know what you're doing with much more certainty at the beginning. So it just feels like there's more effort there. But, yeah.
I wonder if he would have benefited more if he had given you choices, but they were essentially just going to lead to the same place, but it made you feel like you were leading your own story, as opposed to actually branching the whole fucking thing.
A lot of that is how it works. Like, you basically have the same missions no matter what, but dialogue changes. And like options will be locked off and stuff. And sometimes it'll play out more or less exactly the same, but because someone's opinion of you is different from earlier on, it'll have a different outcome. It's just strange. It's kind of odd how the way it works in those games. So
yeah, and after each mission, I guess is or each chapter, I guess.
Being able to see shows like the story tree thing.
You see the actually tree thing, and like your first time through, like you'll see a bunch of shit like, whoa, I could have done this and this would have happened, and or this outcome would, but it all just led back, I guess, to the same thing, essentially, with slightly different results carrying over.
That's what my head looks like after a bad date. I'm just like playing it over in my head, and it's like a tree. I could have done this and that, and there's 17,000.
Just sitting there with his head on his desk, staring at a pile of empty Diet Dr. Pepper cans. Thinking about what he could have said differently.
Hey, if the end of the night ends with me staring at a bunch of empty Dr. Pepper cans, that's a good night. Good night. No, it's not. Let's see here. Hurricane Gold said, the death of Telltale. Capcom Vancouver was the shocking news 2018. Yeah, the death of Telltale was a big thing that happened this year. That was a big bummer.
It was surprising, too. Like, really no rumblings of that beforehand. Just out of nowhere. They could just all of a sudden be belly up was bizarre, very bizarre, and kind of really showcased some of the issues we have as, gaming as an employer, if nothing else, that all of a sudden everyone can just be out of a job Anyway, yeah.
It definitely showcased the ugly side of being a game developer or working on a game. Unfortunately, I mean, I documented and I went through everything of kind of what happened from the beginning to the rise to the fall of Telltale through the Walking Dead series on my side podcast, Evoking the Sublime. But it was really, really unfortunate because nobody won whatsoever. Like, nobody benefited from what happened. Them losing out on all their sponsorships and their money and whatnot. They cut it so close, and I don't understand why, as a business model, that would happen. You would be cutting it that close. But they basically, 100 plus people were out of a job, within a week or within the day.
Yeah.
They lost any kind of job security they had. They lost their health insurance within a week. They had a week on health insurance before they were off of it. And like some of these developers and people who were working on the game were absorbed by other companies, but most of them weren't. And they were out of a job for months. And it was such an unfortunate thing because these multiple of these people, they had families. One of them, and we talked about this before, had just been brought in that week to start working on the game, only to be laid off because of what happened. Thankfully, Skybound Entertainment, which is the company of one of the creators of the Walking Dead comics, ended up picking up the game and decided to proceed with it and hired back a fair number of those people. But it just showed that everything that goes into a game and the uncertainty that surrounds it. And for me personally, not to make it about me, but to me, it just gave me a greater appreciation for what goes into a game, and trying to be a little bit more understanding, because if something flops, I was just ragging on Fallout 76. If something flops, that potentially means people are out of jobs. And it's not always those people's fault, a lot of those people are just given basically what they're supposed to do. They're just told, all right, you need to just render this.
Yeah.
And they don't have any creative control in it. And especially with a big company like Bethesda.
Yeah, that's an issue kind of in all of business, but especially in games, that the people just following directions at the bottom are always the first to suffer for the dumb decisions up top. Always. And it's really ridiculous.
Right. And a big reason why a lot of people get into creating and developing games is to have some sort of creative control over it, to have some sort of input. And we don't know the exact things of what happened at Telltale, so I don't really want to, brainstorm or go into
a deep dive.
Yeah, exactly. It's not time for that, but it just was. Like Josh said, it was so shocking because they were in the middle of releasing their final season. They had other games greenlit, and just out of nowhere, no funding, shut down. And all these people are out of jobs. It was jarring. It was, for a few days, it was all I was doing was just reading about, how did this happen? What led to this? I was reading tweets about the people who lost their job even a month plus later, saying we still don't have jobs. It was shitty.
Yeah.
And I just hope that it doesn't deter people who want to create games from going into that field. And I also hope that this is kind of basically a case study, and other developers can look at this and say, all right, this is not what to do here. Let's make sure we have some sort of security going forward, which is difficult in this line of work. But hopefully, more preventative measures can be taken for future developers to protect their staff.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a good closing comment on that note too, Shea. Headquarters said, non-game related, graduated from my dream school, University of South Carolina. So South Carolina. Sorry, I said that weird. Congratulations, man. That's pretty cool. But he also said, I think Telltale closing was a huge...
South Carolina is officially mumbled in all their official documentation.
South Carolina?
Yeah.
South Carolina?
Yeah. There's a South Carolina boy that, just... You said it correctly. Right. It's unintuitive, but that's correct pronunciation.
All right. Very nice. I think
that's the Pentultimate pronunciation.
Mm-hmm.
I think Telltale closing was a huge surprise, especially after looking forward to The Wolf Among Us Season 2. The first one was incredible, and I would have loved to see the second one. Which I know Josh is always going on about that game. That is a bummer. And, I think it could be sort of to me, it's just a larger thing of just business, being run poorly. Like, I remember I was on vacation with Fish one time a couple years ago, and I had spent a lot of time at this company that I loved in my career, and I just called us in one day and said, yeah, no warning, we're shutting down the center, everyone's losing their job, and that was it. So, it just sucks that it's part of life. And like you said, the game industry is particularly fickle and expensive on top of that. But just in general, anytime people lose their jobs, it sucks. But this is something that was really brought to attention to us because we're enjoying the things that these people create. Like if suddenly tomorrow Rare was like, hey, you Sea of Thieves, you guys love that? We're shutting down. Not enough people like it. The reviews have been terrible. We can't afford to keep this thing going. Nobody's playing it. If that happened, we would be crushed. So I think that's why
you kind of went through this, Morgan, actually a few years ago with Kingdoms of Amalur, because granted, I didn't get to play nearly enough of that game, and I was super excited for it. I didn't have time at the time. But you were super into it, and they were planning all this DLC, which they released a lot of it. They're planning all this stuff, and they were, it was a brand new studio. They were talking about making a second one, and then they just closed.
Yeah.
And this year, there have been a bunch of, studio mergers and closings. It's been a year for that, man. Like,
well, I don't mean to interrupt you, Shea, but ironically, this is the year that this Kingdoms of Amalur IP got picked up again by THQ Nordic. So, which is ironic,
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool, but I mean, like, you went through this. I think this is the year that zombies fucking died, man. Especially for me, because Telltale went under. The studio that did the Dead Rising series, that Capcom studio, they got shut down. I don't think Visceral Games was this year, was it? Dead Space one? That was last year, wasn't it?
I think it was late last year.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, man.
I mean,
Visceral Games
is. Yeah.
It's
close enough to where it feels like it was piled onto this year. All these fucking zombie games and zombie creating studios just and not just them, like a bunch of studios have struggled this year, and it's just a shame. But none of them have been handled as tactlessly as what happened with Telltale. So it was just a very jarring thing that happened this year, for sure.
It really was a bummer. There have been a lot of good things this year, and there were some bummers for sure. And I want to do our own private. It won't be private because it'll be on a public podcast, but I do something brief for us, just kind of about our year in general and our Game of the Year shows. But yeah, thank you everyone who commented. By the way, I want to say right now in the middle of our show here that if you want to support us, we have a Patreon, Sword Chomp. Patreon.com/SwordChomp. And if you go to there, you can donate. We have a $5 tier, which gets you access to a top secret VIP Instagram page with cool, rare videos, jokes, pictures, you name it. It's for like the hardcore. We're trying to get to like $200 a month so we can afford to make every podcast in video form because that's something people have recommended, but we just can't afford the extra. It'll take a lot of extra work for us to pull that off. So if you want to donate to us, that would mean the world to us. Christmas time, you want to drop a Christmas present in Old Fish's pocket. Actually, it just goes right into our legal fees, but same thing. Patreon.com/swordchomp. It would mean the world to us. Now, as we progress here on the show, I'm excited to talk to. I teased the Sonic legs and the Game of the Year stuff. I think it'd be a fun way to end the show with some comedy. But there's two things I wanted to talk about. Most importantly, we've been waiting to talk about Sea of Thieves with our good friend Shea Layton. If you notice the pirate-themed intros and you're hanging around still, it's because we have all been passionate devotees of Sea of Thieves, and I know if you haven't played Sea of Thieves, you look at the critical reception of that game and the general buzz, and you think, what the fuck? What? No, that's weird. Why do you guys like it? But yeah, we all liked it for reasons we'll talk about here briefly, but we never got to play it with our friend Shea, who is the pirate, what's the word? Pirate geek, pirate nerd of the crew.
Aficionado
works.
Yeah.
What do they call sommelier? He's a sommelier of pirates. Yeah, I don't know.
You're talking about Somalian pirates?
Yeah, that works too.
Huh. Okay.
Wasn't a sommelier like a wine tester or something? I don't know. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. The point is, we've been excited to talk about Sea of Thieves with our friend Shea for a while. The real precursor to the story that I think is interesting, I wanted to play this game, but I did not own an Xbox One at the time. Shea had one back at his family's house because he lives in Japan, and he decided that he wanted to take his PS4 with him. So I went and borrowed his old Xbox One because nobody was playing it to try this whole Sea of Thieves thing and to give Game Pass a shot. And I got hooked. Then I wanted to get Josh involved. So I remember one of the few games I went to Josh, was like, Josh, I will buy half of this game for you. You need to play this with me. I've never done that before in my entire life. And then because I was so confident that either Josh would like it or we'd have fun playing it together. And then, of course, I got Fish hooked on the train, etc. And so on and so forth. Sea of Thieves became a thing on Sword Chomp. Now, the end of the year has come, and I ended up sending that Xbox to Fish. He ended up playing some games with me like No Man's Sky and stuff, but then decided that he needed to send it back to its original owner in Japan. And Shea finally received the Xbox, got his Xbox Live signed up with Game Pass, and has finally set out on his pirating adventure. What do you think, Shea? Is that enough build-up for this story?
I think that's enough build-up. That's enough foreplay. Yeah. No, it's been really fun playing this game the few times that I've played it with you guys. It kind of blends together because, I actually had one other thing I wanted to mention for the previous topic we were just talking about, but it actually blends well together with this conversation. Is I think this year has also been a really good year for us here as the crew, but just people in general. More specifically for us, though, it's kind of been the year of online gaming. It really has. There's been a ton of online games, and they're all, designed keeping you together. Like a lot of previous games, I feel like has been about competition against other people. I mean, you can team up on things like League of Legends and Call of Duty and stuff like that. But this game, the gaming this year has seemed a little bit different than that to some degree. Like No Man's Sky finally being the game it was supposed to be. That is a game about exploring together, not killing things, which has been awesome. Sea of Thieves has been, granted, you're killing things, but I mean, you're also exploring together. It's just been this game, it's almost been this level of camaraderie gaming this year, and I've really felt it, especially with us playing together. I mean, we've played so many games online together this year, such as Red Dead 2, Sea of Thieves, No Man's Sky. You guys have been playing Super Smash Brothers. We played Fortnite. What else? There've been a ton of games. I'm probably forgetting a ton. Monster Hunter.
Yeah, tried to play Monster Hunter together, but that could have been a really good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's just been a ton of gaming for us this year, and it's been great. It's honestly, I felt like this is like the closest we've ever been as a podcast, because as a group of people too, because the most we did gaming together in the past was the Pokemon events that we would do.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, that doesn't feel like we're gaming together, because we're training these characters to do our bidding by ourselves. So it never really felt like we were actually playing together. And this year we've done that a ton. And I think Sea of Thieves, granted, I wish, all four of us could have played it at the same time. I felt like was a great culmination of that, because it really showed each one of our personalities, and it kind of showed us what we're good and bad at, and like how we complement each other. And that's part of what made playing Sea of Thieves so much fun these past few weeks. But outside of that, I think it's an awesome game. And I don't understand why it got all the shit that it got. I really don't. I was kind of thinking about this a little bit earlier when we were talking earlier in the podcast today. And I think part of the reason why that game's gotten so much shit is because there's no defined, clear objective. Where you look at something like Call of Duty, when you're playing Call of Duty online, it's about, disarming a bomb, or it's about killing the other team an X amount of times, or if it's a hardcore team deathmatch, you're just trying to kill everyone in a round, whatever it is. And there's a defined objective. But with this game, or No Man's Sky, I mean, No Man's Sky, you're going to the center of the galaxy, but the likelihood that happens is slim. So it's
you're just looking
games
around. You're just looking at cool shit with your friends.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like a virtual hangout, and people want more content. They want more direction or objective. And I don't feel like this game necessarily needs that. Like some of my favorite moments have been in the game, just the three of us just sailing in the open seas and just admiring the beautiful water that this game has, and just bullshitting. It's been, some of those moments are my favorite moments in the game. Kind of like God of War for me. Some of my favorite moments in that game were, sailing with Kratos, his son, and Mimir, and just listening to them having a conversation. It's kind of the same thing where you're just relaxing and just enjoying some free time, and I could see the criticism that it doesn't have a large objective. Sea of Thieves doesn't. I don't think it personally needs it for myself. For me, it's a game that I could see, us getting to play like once a month, and we just get to relax and sit down and just bullshit, talk about things, catch up, and just have fun. I think it's a great, relaxing adventure, minus when I tell Morgan to shut the fuck up, which I still feel really bad about.
I need to find that clip.
Yeah, that's
low
point.
It's
but
one thing that you said that I think is cool that we mentioned way back in the day. Unfortunately, we were playing it without you. Is that game brings out everyone's strengths or weaknesses. Like for me, it's just like I'm all in there for the entertainment and taking videos for the Instagram and just making horrible dick jokes. And Josh is there for the to get shit done and to try and like complete the objectives and to give orders. And Fish, how would you say your personality blends into that whole pirating thing?
I'm just the best pirate out on the seas. So you guys are lucky to have me on your vessel. So
I thought you were gonna say it's all the molestation that happens in the back cabin. That's really your forte, remember?
We are lucky to have you on our vessel when you stay on the vessel and not abandon ship when you're the only person on the ship.
And that sucks because that was one of the best moments of the year was Fish not knowing what he was doing, getting excited, jumping off the boat, and then the boat just goes off on its own. It's fucking crashing into an island, and we're just fighting this guy on this other boat. We're like, Fish, somebody has to steer the damn boat. Like, emerging gameplay. That's what we talk about the most. This game is all about emerging gameplay. I was trying to pull up a an IGN like review or something big, so I could skip to the last paragraph and see what like an epitome of what people didn't like about it. But the general idea, Shea, was that it was a content. People get saying that over and over. But I want to throw this at you first. How did you, like, for me, the first time I played the game, there's just something about like now, Garrett, this feeling's kind of gone a little bit at this point because I've played it for so many times. But the first day I played it, I told you guys this. I played with a good friend, Akuna Matata, and there's just something about the feel of that game. Like the feel of being on that ship in the ocean. It just felt like nothing I had ever played before. Did you feel that?
Yeah,
way?
absolutely. I want to be tangential for a second because it blends with this so well. When I went to Okinawa this summer, and I was on this boat because we were going out to the scuba diving area. And I just remember being on the boat and the waves are kind of jostling the boat around a little bit. And I just remember being out there just staring at the ocean. I was just like, man, this is just so peaceful. This is exactly where I want to be right now. I knew this is the exact moment I wanted to be in and all that. And it was just super relaxing. It was comforting. And the first time the three of us departed on the open seas, and I just got to see the water mechanics, the physics, and how beautiful it looked. I got kind of that same feeling. It's not quite as visceral because there's nothing quite like living through it, but I just got this kind of tranquility about me. I felt this is exactly how I should feel right now in this game. It's just super peaceful. Like there's this desire to see what's next, but not to rush towards it type of thing. There's nothing like the feeling I felt when I first played that game. The second time it didn't feel like the second time we played together, I didn't quite feel it as much because we were kind of trying to rush because we had a limited amount of time, unfortunately. But yeah, there's nothing like that. Playing that game the first time, there's nothing like it. The closest thing I would think of would actually be something like No Man's Sky. But even then, it's not quite the same. Like there's a level of tranquility. It's just a different type of tranquility.
Yeah, like being alone in space in No Man's Sky is just there's nothing like it. But it's like
both of them give you just a huge sense of scale in a really cool way. With just like you were mentioning, the ocean in Sea of Thieves feels so unique. Like depending on the weather in game, just it can go from just perfectly calm and just cruising along to huge waves taller than your ship that you're climbing up and down. It's a really cool feeling. And No Man's Sky does a similar thing whenever you're between planets, where you can just cruise along at the speed you were traveling when you were on the planet's surface, which seemed super fast. You're just whizzing by everything. And then you look down at your, ship's computer and it's saying, 2 weeks to the nearest planet at that speed.
You'll arrive in 2 weeks.
Yeah. And
it's not joking. It would literally take you 2 weeks.
If you just sat there and cruised towards it, it would take you that long, which it's a really cool feeling whenever games are able to get you with that scale. I mean, that's something I've mentioned before in relation to other open world games, how sometimes they just don't quite get it. Like it's close, but like if you actually pay attention, it's just off. Like it just doesn't quite make sense. And then you get games that just are so true to the scale that it's really cool, and it can draw you in a really, really unique way.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that's part of the reason why both those games have been shit on, is because I think gamers are so used to scale not being realistic or off. And yeah, like you're saying with No Man's Sky, when you feel that actual scale, you're like, all right, this is fairly realistic in terms of scale, and it's jarring. It like a game that would actually take you 2 weeks to travel from one planet to another. That's intimidating. And I think for some people, that's just off-putting. You look at something like Red Dead, where I think the scale is not great. It's not bad, but it's not great either, because you are basically traveling across state lines, essentially, in a matter of minutes. And that scale is not at all realistic, but if they made it realistic, because part of it takes place essentially in Montana. And if they made that realistic at all, traveling on a horseback from one state to another would take you hours.
Yeah,
no one wants to play that.
It's weird. It's like, as far as like distance towns are apart and stuff like that, it's about right. You know, as far as climbing a mountain, it makes sense. But yeah, it goes from one completely different climate to another in like, you know, the space of a half a mile. And it's like, okay, I guess we're in the desert now. And that sort of thing is just kind of strange.
Well, it's just like Shea said, like in No Man's Sky, you can look at the 2 weeks thing, but no one's going to spend 2 weeks flying. They're going to equip their boosters, and they're going to get there in about 2 minutes. So you can, your horse doesn't really have boosters in Red Dead Redemption, so it's not going to be ideal. And the Sea of Thieves map is good size, but it's not like gargantuan by any means. It's just you have to get everywhere with a real sense of speed and scale, so it works.
Right. It just feels like, it doesn't feel like a large map, but it feels realistic in the time it takes to get there and how you get there. You know, like let me be honest. I've never sailed a fucking boat in my life. I wish I knew how. I don't know how. But when I play that game, it makes me feel like it's fairly realistic in how you go about it. Like the physics of turning the boat and getting it all set up to where you are in line with where you need to be to park a boat or dock feels pretty damn realistic. How you put the sails up and down and move it to catch wind or fight against the wind feels fairly realistic. I'm sure, you know, you can make a case for the anchor not being super realistic or whatever, and that's fine. It is, you know, games can't be 100% realistic, but it feels realistic in terms of the scale of the game, and it just works so well together. And I think that's part of the beauty of the game.
Fish, I see you leaning over. You got something to say?
I'll just add that, like, those mundane tasks of actually driving the boat do indeed feel mundane if you're just doing them by yourself. But can also be very rewarding in that game, which I find weird. Like, I played that game is solo on a sloop, and like being able to efficiently go across the map and, you know, hunt down treasure chests and whatnot. Like there's some satisfaction, you know, in learning how to actually properly steer that boat. Like it's not that difficult. It's very accessible. Like everybody knows how wind works, and like they could put one and one together with the sails, and they're sailing essentially.
Well, yeah, it's satisfying. As another example, kind of going back to Red Dead, it can take you about the same amount of time to go from where you start to your quest marker in both games, but in one you're sailing there, and the other one you're mashing X for, 20 minutes.
Right.
And one feels very satisfying, and the other one feels like carpal tunnel.
I don't agree with that, but continue.
But it's really cool how they're able to just make moving feel satisfying in that game.
Well, but they have an advantage. Like I don't know why I always got to bring Red Dead into this. They're just different things. Like traveling on a horse. It's one of the reasons I always love Wind Waker, because you were on a boat, and horses. I mean, it's just sort of the nature of the beast. I found getting place to place in Red Dead very satisfying. But
no, I do too. In the open world, like the open world is the thing that works the most in that game. Other than, like we mentioned, the climate, just different biomes right next to each other is weird. But other than that, it feels really good just to explore that world.
But yeah, like you're saying on that note, boats are just, it's the nature. There's why there's not a lot of games like, I can't think of any other. I know there's not a lot of pirate games, but there's no other games that have attempted to do this thing, and I think that's why it's interesting. Now, having said that, this is where it gets the fascinating debate takes over. Okay, so this is the opening line from the very popular IGN review, but I just want us to digest it and give our own opinions, okay? After 40 hours of Sea of Thieves, the pirate battles on screen were as tense as my own internal battle over whether I was enjoying Sea of Thieves as a game or as the prettiest online chat room ever. What's here is an amazing foundation for a social experience that's beautifully realized, and that makes it frustrating that the gameplay loop is so repetitive and its progression is stagnant. Now, this is when it first came out, obviously. Now, that's not entirely wrong, actually. The actual loop of the game, if you're looking for a generic video game loop, collecting things, trading them in to make yourself better, is going to let you down because everything in this game is aesthetic. It's all aesthetic, mostly. The joy for me always came from the moment-to-moment emergent stories and experiences, and I feel like that's an important thing to recognize because if you go to play this game, like after playing the game for weeks and weeks, we had enough money to buy stuff and that felt good, but it doesn't mean anything. Like my gear doesn't make me feel like I progressed.
Yeah, it's all just, you know,
like
you're not getting
rights.
any
it's
stronger
like
through the game. It's
yes,
just for looks, which I like because you don't run into, you know, some completely decked out ship and think, well, I have zero chance here. If you know what you're doing, you can pull it off. Like you never have to worry about being just completely outgunned. Granted, if you see someone completely decked out, they probably know what they're doing and will stomp you anyway. But it'll be your own fault, and not
true.
So much that I just didn't have a chance here.
That's the cool thing. When you see someone decked out, you're like, they know what they're doing. It's not like, you know what I mean? They didn't buy it. It's not a pay to win thing.
Well, exactly. It feels good that way because you see somebody with like the coolest stuff out there, and they feel like this legendary pirate. It's not like, oh, well, they just, you know, I guess they dumped a little money into this game and got the new skin pack. And yeah, it's a cool experience. That being said, all these reviews are for when the game came out, and there was a lot less content. They have had very, very regular content updates since the game came out. I don't know if you looked into it at all, but like if you open the menu, Shea, you can kind of see like a list of achievements and stuff. And a lot of them are based off of prior events, like the Megalodons. That was an event. Those statues that were underwater, the ghost ships. There's a ton of content that is still just around in the world that was added in these events just as the game went on. That is really fleshed out the world and added variety that wasn't there as much at the beginning. Granted, there were more people to interact with at the beginning that kind of made up for the lack of variety in the world itself. Like
we ran into a lot more. It seemed like we were running into more people, but
yeah,
I know we talked about it a little bit. It's unfortunate that a lot of people, because I know you did a poll and I'm kind of leading into it a little bit, that you asked whether people would give it another try now that it's had time, that more's been put into the game, and a lot of our fans said no. And that was really surprising because you look at something like No Man's Sky that started out fairly bare bones, that has so much content now, and of course a lot of people are willing to give that a second chance. Sea of Thieves, I probably would have felt somewhat like a lot of people, whereas it would have felt like nothing. But fortunately, I've had the privilege of coming into the game as late as I have with as much content as there is now. And I'm satisfied with the amount of content there is. There's enough variety of things to do in there. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people aren't going to give it a second chance, because I think, you know, they would be surprised, like based off what you guys are saying, based off of what I've read and what I've seen, it's a lot different game now. It feels like a more robust experience. And it's just unfortunate that people aren't going to give it that second chance, because I think it has a lot of promise, and I think it shows how fun something can be while being somewhat minimalist at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you're kind of an interesting case study too, Shea, because you are coming in now. Now, it's for the record, we've only we've played it like 2 good sessions since you've been here, and I'm sure most people would say, well, if I buy a game, I need to play it more than 2 days and have a good time. So time will tell how long you personally will continue to enjoy it, right? I think it's a fair thing to say.
I think it is and it isn't, because like some games, think about it this way. Uncharted 4 is an 8-hour game, yet we love the fucking hell out of that game. We fucking love that game. I've played 2 times, technically 3, for a total of about 13 hours. And I've had a ton of fun with that game. Granted, maybe it's the honeymoon phase or whatever you want to call it, but I don't think time, like the number of hours played, ever dictates or should ever dictate, unless it's like egregiously low, how much fun a game is, or how much fun someone has with the game.
Well, I was going to lead you into that, but I actually agree with that. Uncharted 4 was like 20 hours for me, by the way. I don't know. 8 hours seems a little fast, but I was just giving you shit. No, I agree. I think that there's value in saying you can, depending on how much you're paying for the product and how you get a hold of it, even if we just enjoyed it on weekends for 2 months, every Sunday we got together as friends and we had a good time. That was enough for me.
Had we kept up, play a weekend every time there's a content update, we would have had, still months of, let's get together on a weekend, play some new content from Sea of Thieves. Like, even if you didn't think it was the most fleshed out, if you just kind of want to jump in here and there with friends, it is absolutely the perfect game for that. They've just, with all the support so far, and it's and just the format in its own.
Friends, if you have at least one good friend, and you think being a pirate sounds fun, you can go out there and have a good time with this game. And it's $10 on Game Pass. I have no fear recommending someone spend $10 on this game at all. It's just, you need to have friends. You just need to. And things will happen. Like last night, I was worried that maybe we wouldn't have any cool immersion experiences with Shea. And literally last night, after we killed some megalodons, which are technically just, they're not, obviously it's not a person controlling megalodons, it's just part of the world now, which is fucking cool. But we ran into this guy who was really friendly. He was giving us a bunch of stuff because he's about to log off. And then we were just kind of hanging out with him on there. Next thing you know, we're inviting him onto our ship, and we're taking down krakens and killing megalodons. And it was just like this random guy. And we solved these people, and we saved them from a kraken, or maybe they didn't even need our help, but we helped them anyway. And they didn't know they left treasure behind in the water. We went and picked it up. We saw them on the dock. We dropped it off for them. They were looking at us like, what is this? You're giving us treasure? We're like, yeah, this was your treasure. They took it, turned us in, waved to us. It was like cool little things like that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Emergent gameplay. Yeah.
Emergent gameplay.
Did you mention that, like, so the guy that, like, when we were playing last night, the guy that ended up joining us, how we initially met him is we were just sitting on the dock, and he walked up to you and just started giving you shit.
Yeah.
Just like he just started handing you boards and bananas and cannonballs.
I was in party chat, so I couldn't hear the game chat, and he was just holding stuff out to me, like holding a cannonball in my face. And I was like, do you want me to take it? Okay. And he just kept giving me his stuff, and I'm like, well. And we later found out it was because he was about to log off, and he was just being... A lot of the people in that game are nicer now. Technically, when we first started playing it, it was called Sea of Thieves for a reason, and you get into some fun pirate battles, which gave us great stories. But I will say this, they need more of these events, because when the Megalodon event was happening, everyone was like banding together for that 1 week to, like, it was crazy, Shea. There was like 3 or 4 ships would sail in together, and you could hear each other, and you're all working together to take down. The Megalodons were much harder back then, and it was like a big event, right? There's a whole quest for it. And I think if they could just do more stuff like that, where everyone who likes the game knows, fuck, there's this crazy new thing we need to log on for this week, we would see everyone playing the game at the same time. You know what I mean? And
or even once a month.
Yeah, or I just wish there was more of that, because these content updates are really cool. But like that moment when that Megalodon event was happening was special. Like, I've never seen anything like that. And in a game, and everyone in that game was an asshole, and that event turned us all into best friends because we all wanted to
you all had to. You had to be.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting. I don't know how much work it would be, but it would be cool to see them throw more events in that. Like, for example, they throw in like a small thing, like once, like 1 month, it's like, oh, you have to go fight a bunch of harpies at a cove, and you have to you have to pair up because there's so many, like there's an infestation of harpies. You just got to go blow them all away. That would be something really cool.
They've done tons of different events, but not all of them have had that you need to band together sort of a feel. Only a couple of them have really been, you're going to need help from a lot of people to do this sort of a vibe. And the Megalodon one, when they first introduced that, was definitely that way, and really, it was a really cool experience. Just being able to see that many people kind of banding together. It felt like the old world bosses in WoW, where just like all of a sudden the boss is up and the entire server would just show up to help you kill it. And that sort of thing that's cool. It's not really an experience a lot of people get anymore. So it was definitely cool to see that sort of thing in Sea of Thieves again.
And they were different too. Like when I did it with Fish and Josh, there was like 3 galleons, and it was weird. I felt like I was on this giant fucking ship. But whenever I did it the first time, it was just me and Hakuna Matata rolling around in a sloop, and a bunch of sloops were with us, and we felt like that's our biggest video ever on Instagram right now. It's like 15,000 views. We were literally, there was like a 10-year-old kid in the game chat yelling like, "Oh my god!" and we're all experiencing it for the first time, and we're all hitting our war drums, boom, 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 boom. And like we're all on these tiny ships that are getting fucking knocked around like a fucking kid in a bathtub. Just it was fucking crazy. So
I hope that happens in the future, that they introduce more stuff. There are a million ideas they could do. It's a matter of resources and development, how much, but it would be cool. Like it'd be cool to see like something like a NPC group of pirates are just coming to invade this area, and you just got to band together and kill the enemy pirate ships. It's like just this large armada that you have to band together to kill. Like shit like that would be so cool.
Or if they could encourage people to attack each other, like, hey, if during this weekend, every time you sink an enemy ship, you get a point, and if you get 10 of those points, you get like 100,000 gold or something. And everyone's looking
just to
for
kind of change up the way you interact here and there. Yeah, is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool too.
It has a lot of potential. I'm just worried that maybe not enough people are playing it. And I was watching one of their developer diaries the other day, and the guy seemed optimistic about it. He said that they still have these passionate fans that come up to them all the time and tell them how important this game has been in their life, but that reviews are still a very common standard measurement for success in the industry.
Yeah.
And
nobody goes back and does addendums to reviews. And like, yeah, this is definitely something that I kind of feel like deserves it in a way. Like, especially because most of these reviews came out before the game was out. There was nobody to play with on the servers at the time. So, like, all those reviews are based off of wandering around on your own and just what the initial loop of a grind was. Which is just there to kind of give you the mildest bit of incentive to go out there and explore. So yeah, it's just it definitely was not the game in a review setting is not what the game is. So yeah.
Well, and it's like Shea, like we were telling Shea earlier, that the reason I got burned out on it, Fish gives me shit for it because I only played it with him for like a month, and then he accuses me of abandoning him, which is not true. I mean, playing a game for a month with a friend is a long time. Fish wants to play a game for 5 months, or he's not satisfied.
Yeah. 5 months every day.
5 months every day. Yeah. But it was just because me and the issue we were running into was Josh wanted to do the loop of the collecting stuff, and I wanted to kill people. And it was just like we were kind of splitting in our philosophies, because I was like, I don't want to get a single treasure chest because it's too slow. Like, I don't want to spend hours getting 10,000 gold because I don't care. I want to fight people. I want to make memories. And Josh was like, well, I want to do the stuff in the game, and then if we run into people on the way, we can make memories that way. And I get the loop because it got fucking boring for me, but I never got tired of the experiences that happened when we met other players.
Yeah. Yeah, and I liked the extra stakes of having something on our ship that we could lose.
Yes.
Which you were always kind of like, let's just go start a fight and steal someone's crap. And I was more like, let's, try to win these fights, but, up the stakes a little bit. Do some other stuff in the meantime.
Well, but that's the thing.
And,
The treasure, there's not enough stakes. Like, they need about every ship we killed last night was empty. You know what I mean? Like, we had like 2 chests at a time. They need to find a way to make the stakes higher. And then it's going to be more interesting. We were talking
about that a little bit last night. We were talking about how maybe they need to increase the number of players in a room, essentially, or in a...
Just so you encounter them a little more often than currently?
Yeah.
Something.
Yes, yeah. And that might also just be due to the number of players on the servers as well.
Yeah. There definitely were more when I first started
the game.
Yeah, like we saw way less than whenever the 3 of us were originally playing. When the game first came out, there's a noticeable drop off. Like, you still see people around. It's not like a ghost town or anything, but like, you were constantly getting in fights whenever the game first came out. Like, it was just, you were always in a fight. You'd get in a fight, go try to loot the ship that you just, sank, and somebody would be attacking you already.
And see, that's awesome. And I think that's the one experience I am sad we haven't had yet. Is the closest thing that it's come to that is when Josh and I were playing the first time and Morgan had got off, and we were fighting a megalodon, and then a ship showed up, and then we were fighting the ship and this megalodon all at the same time. Granted, it was a ghost ship, I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah. But I think that was the closest I've been to that. It's just like, it was hectic as fuck. We're sitting there trying to defend against both the megalodon and the ghost ship. And I want more of that in this game. I want more hectic. And because, like, I totally 100% love and appreciate those moments where you get to relax and just sail along. Yeah. I appreciate that. I think the scale of the game lends itself to that. But I also think it lends itself to a little bit more hectic happening in the game. I don't know if that requires more people playing, or if that requires a retooling of how the different servers work on the game, or adding more content. I don't know the exact answer. Obviously, we're just 4 people who like playing the game, but I think it can be retooled a little bit, and I hope it is.
Yeah, me personally, like, I haven't played it recently, but seeing you guys' stream, like, I was wondering, I was like, hey, how come nobody's looking off into the horizon and
checking
trying
for
to spot
ships all the time?
Yeah, for player manned ships. And like, that was a big thing whenever me, Morgan, and Josh were playing, was like always keeping a lookout for other ships on the horizon, just to make sure you don't get ran up on by surprise. Which
if you weren't watching yourself, they'd sneak up on you. Like, they'd follow you until you stopped on an island, and then just as soon as you left the ship, they'd come blow up your ship. Like, it was,
doesn't it feel essential now?
Really cool.
Though?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's different. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. It's weird now. Like, seeing the state of the game now. There's more in the world that has nothing to do with real people. Like, the megalodons are fucking awesome, but they're all over the place now. Like, Shea ran into 2 the first day. We ran into 3 last night. I'm like, okay, they're awesome. I'm not saying you don't want to run into giant sharks.
Of them, yeah.
It's just weird. It's like they're all over the place. And like, I think what the developers are probably stressed about is, if we don't have enough real people playing the game and people go to play it, we don't want them to be bored. So they're trying to fill it with more stuff to do, more megalodons, more krakens, more quests. And that's fine, but that loop is not what makes the game incredible. That loop is it's like a peripheral thing. It's a complementary dish to the main dish, which is interacting with real people. So, and that's something they have no control over.
Yeah.
How many people are playing the game, unless they think of smart ways to get people to log back on. And
it's like going to a buffet and having a bunch of different salad bars, and then just one really small tray of the main dish. And it's a limited amount of what's in that main dish. So you only get to eat a little bit of it, but then you get to enjoy as much salad as you want. Yeah. It's pretty much what it feels like.
Yeah, then just watching everybody rush back to the shrimp when they change it out with a fresh batch.
That's right.
Yeah. I thought I was going to say something else. I still going to love playing it with you guys, especially down the road if Fish finds a way to playing with us. We still haven't completed the full circle, which is playing together. I will say this game could have, if they can just keep it going, this game could have a No Man's Sky sort of like life cycle to it, where maybe in a year or two, if they do something incredible, everyone comes back to it.
Yeah.
And that would be amazing.
Yeah, this definitely, I can see it having a good tail to it, because this is like, we've played it here and there since it came out. It's been like 9 months, and it's kept us coming back here and there as it's gone. So, yeah, like I can see us playing it anytime we have a good chance to just kind of all hop on and play a game together for some time.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing about the Game Pass subscription for people that don't buy it. If you buy it, that's great. I think it's worth purchasing if you love it. But if you're someone who likes to have Game Pass to just play all the games on there, when your friend wants to play Sea of Thieves with you, it's there all the time for just $9 a month. Now, at some point, you might be like, well, fuck, if I might as well just buy the goddamn game. But Game Pass has been a cool thing lately. I was telling you guys about all the stuff that's showing up on there. It's just even surprised me. So, I don't know. I think we've covered it pretty well, but we'll play it more, I'm sure. I would love to play it more with you guys. You have to take a lot of time out of your day, and you need to play it with friends, and you have to hope you run into other people. There's a lot of you need. But every time we played it, at least before, we were having amazing experiences, and we're still having a lot of fun now. It's just, you really got to hope that you run into some other people. Pray to the pirate gods that you run into some real humans. Ain't that right, fish? Arr. Arr. But overall, Shea, it was cool to finally play it with you, and to see you after the first day you played it. You had that jonesing like we had after that first day. You're like, I gotta play it. Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah, it got us good, man. That first couple weeks of this game, and it was cool because it was like our weekend thing. It was like, okay, I'm gonna play it for like 5 hours on the weekend until I get it out of my system, and then I'm not gonna think about it during the week, and I'll come back to it on the weekend. It was like a thing, you know?
Yeah.
So, if you're listening and you don't get the Sea of Thieves thing, maybe that helps understand it. It's an interesting game to talk about.
Yeah, like it almost feels like just kind of your weekly D&D campaign or something along those lines. Like it's a really cool place to go be with your friends. It really kind of scratches a really similar itch.
That's such a good comparison. It's like you're playing a seafaring D&D or Pathfinder campaign where the DM is, the game itself, essentially. Not as much wild shit happens, but,
And maybe we'll still have some cool experiences with you, Shea. You never know. Like, I think if we play on the weekend on certain time, you got to find peak. I would love to talk to
figure out
staff
when
like,
peak hours is. Yeah.
Peak pirates. What's peak pirate hours?
I'm sure we could find groups online. Like, I'm sure a group, as nerdy as this is, they probably post times a bunch of them play.
Like a Reddit page or something. I bet there's a fucking poppin' Sea of Thieves Reddit page.
Probably.
The fish probably surfed it many times back in the day.
Oh, yeah. I was surfing it this week because seeing you guys playing the game got me interested in seeing exactly what all the other players were into in that game and what kind of hijinks they were getting into and all the little videos that they were posting on Reddit. But yeah, last night, whenever you guys first started out, like the first island you went to, like I started hearing like thunderous roars, and I was like, "Is a storm coming towards them? Well, this is weird. They're in for a treat." But it turns out it was a volcano, and I'd never seen a volcano, and like I was blown away by that. I was like, "Oh, that is something fucking cool in the game." But like all three of you were just like, "Oh fuck, it's a volcano. Gotta get away from it."
No, it's a cool thing when you're on the island. The only downside to it is that it'll sink your ship while you're on the island, so you're kind of locked into somebody going and babysitting the ship, which is
right.
That was the least fun part about when tons of people were playing the game, is that somebody's job was always to babysit ship. Jesus Christ. Babysit the ship while the rest of you went and had fun. And this kind of feels like a similar sort of thing. Like, it's really cool when you're on the island having like geysers blow up from the ground and having to watch out for rocks flying all over the place. But it always leaves somebody with a crappy job. Is the one downside to the volcanoes that.
It looks like an irritating thing that they tried, and judging from the fact that we didn't see anybody in that area, I'm guessing people don't like it. It's just a theory that I have.
Like, it's a really cool idea, but it just, like that one issue that somebody's stuck sitting there and patching holes in the ship or just doing circles out of range of the volcano is just not the most fun thing ever.
Right.
So,
look, I mean,
as opposed to like another natural type of disaster type of thing where like
something where you could just
storm or something.
Like the storms. If you go on to an island while it's storming, it'll rain and get a bunch of water in your boat, but it won't be enough to sink it. You don't have to really worry about it.
It's not that
worrisome. Yeah. And honestly, I like from our apartment days, me and Fish. From like the 3 ways that we had, like Fish is used to hanging back and waiting for the eruption to stop before he runs in. So it's just I think he'll be great at that, honestly.
It's a very good tactic to follow. Yeah, definitely.
I will say
wait.
Is it done yet, Morgan? Okay, I'm gonna. Well, I became that guy from South Park. Howdy, howdy, ho. So there's 2 final things I wanted to say. Real quickly, like, this is kind of like our last Sea of Thieves splurge before Game of the Year stuff, or I'm sure it'll come up on occasion. We talked about Rare earlier, and one of the things that's weird about this game that I just can't shake, even though I'm playing it on an Xbox One and it looks fucking amazing, is that it feels like a Nintendo game. Like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a Rare thing. Maybe it's psychological. Like the art style mixed with how like polished it is. It's weird. It feels like a fucking Nintendo game. It's odd.
Well, it's solid. It is solid. I think I've played 1 time with server issues, like 1 time in the entire 9 months we've been playing.
It doesn't feel glitchy really that I've experienced.
Yeah,
it does feel solid.
It does. It feels like a really solid game, and it's strange that that's become something that only Nintendo is really known for anymore. But
yeah, that's true.
Between that
more
and
so
kind of a lot of the
places.
whimsy still feels very Nintendo, which a lot of that Rare did on their own, but we just really associated it with Nintendo at the time. Just given what
they did it with Nintendo properties,
so.
Like they made Donkey Kong and stuff like that, so they were doing it with Nintendo properties. But yeah, it does have that sort of feel, which is cool. I think it makes it feel special. I think in a way that's charming and nice. And I think that's all I forgot. I had something else going to say. God damn it. Oh, well. It's a pretty fucking game. That is a pretty fucking game.
You want to know something funny? Is I'm looking at the Reddit page for Sea of Thieves right now, and someone just posted 14 hours ago. Dear Rare, please, I beg you to increase the ship capacity per server/world. I barely ever see anyone. Yours sincerely, a lonely pirate.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if I would have had, like, I still love the game, but I almost wonder if I had stopped after we first played it and never touched it again, if I had almost feel higher on the game than like now, where I still love it, but I'm like concerned because it feels a little more empty. And it even when people complained about it before, it never felt empty to me because we were running into people all the time. And I'm trying to like parse that out in my brain because like there's all these cool things now.
There's always drop off, like, so.
Yeah, that's true. It's just weird. I mean, it's a fun thing to talk about because there's so many dynamics in play.
Yeah.
But it is not, this Metacritic about it being a fucking 60 whatever. It's fucking horse shit. It's fucking horse shit. Say it with me. Horse shit. Horse shit. Horse shit.
Horse shit.
Thank you. I got one horse shitter on there.
They be needing to go to the gallows.
Send those critics to the plank. Arr. Okay, so let's round up the show with some fun polls. I'll save the Monster Hunter Talk for the Game of the Year show. I've been playing a lot of that lately, but me and Fish can maybe wax and wane on that a little bit next week. Because this has been already a pretty long show. Now, a couple exciting polls. Shea already alluded to this. 60% of our audience said they will not be giving Sea of Thieves a chance, more than likely. But We'll see maybe over time if that changes. I'm sure a lot of people said that about No Man's Sky too. So cross our fingers. Maybe we can convince a few people to get with their friends and give it a shot. The Game of the Year contenders progressed as anyone would have predicted in overwhelming slaughters. God of War and Red Dead Redemption 2 just obliterated the competition. So that will be the Game of the Year matchup with the listeners next week. So we'll see what happens. I was hoping that some weird game would just get a huge following and just surprise everyone, but it didn't happen. So sorry. Sorry, guys. Sorry. But I like people being able to vote, so that's going to be fun. Red Dead versus God of War next week. And then, last but surely not least, a great way to end the show. Now, I want to say, like I mentioned earlier, patreon.com/swordchomp. Donate. Help us keep going. Our crazy show. We're going to keep doing this. But the more you can help us grow, video, maybe merchandise one day, you name it, we need your help. So just go to patreon.com/swordchomp and be a VIP. Also, side podcasts. I interview composers on a podcast called In the Blood, and Shea interviews developers on a podcast called Evoking the Sublime. You check those out. We have links up on the Instagram page as well. They're great podcasts, and they are worth checking out. And our Game of the Year shows are the craziest, most epic shows of the year, and they'll be coming in your feed in just about over a week or so. So last way to round the show up with some comedy, there's a Sonic the Hedgehog movie, all right? And it is a real thing. Now, the strangely positive things about this Sonic the Hedgehog movie, this is not a joke. The actor who plays, if you're a fan of Parks and Recreation, the voice of Sonic is actually going to be the person that plays John Ralphio from Parks and Rec. I actually tried to pull up his name right now, but he is a very funny and fantastic actor that I love dearly. And
just not enough to learn his name.
It's Bruce Willis. God, that would be the weirdest Sonic in the world, wouldn't it? Yippee-ki-yay, Dr. Eggman.
The weirdest Die Hard movie I've ever seen.
See, you made me Google so much dumb shit like Pentultimate and all this other nonsense that I didn't want to look up. Here it is. Okay. So Ben Schwartz, that's his name. And he is going to be doing the voice of Sonic. And he's fucking great. Also, Jim Carrey is apparently going to be Dr. Eggman. So that's kind of weird. And we don't know a lot about it, but there is a poster officially for the movie. And it shows Sonic the Hedgehog's legs. And they are long-ass human legs. So the poll was, just for the sake of not taking things too seriously, there was two options. And in the only time in the history of Sword Chomp have we ever had a perfect tie, it happened on this one. And the choices were, the Sonic porn, or dim legs. And it was 50-50. Right down the middle. Have you guys seen the poster?
Where do you want to be with those legs?
Yeah, give me some thoughts on this, guys. Talk to me.
I don't care.
It's
so this is great.
It's
Josh
bizarre.
Brody,
like it feels
care.
like they're kind of going for a similar look as the Pokemon movie, and they both kind of released, that look at the same time. So I don't know how that exactly happened, but one of them is like creepy but somehow charming, and the other one looks like it's definitely going to have some fanfic-ish elements to it.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, Sonic already had a dark road of Sonic porn.
Yeah, he had a thing for actual human ladies.
He did.
Documented for the last couple decades. So
Let's just give him a humanoid dick while we're at it. Why not?
Yeah, it was. We should have seen this coming. None of us want to see it coming. I mean, there's obviously a community there, but we should have seen this coming.
My joke was going to go right along with that. I was going to say, I wonder if his dick works as fast as his legs.
That's good. I was joking with one of our VIPs and friends, Border Jumper Mel, and she said that he'd be a great quickie. So. You just spin so
Which
fast.
one's
it's
the
like
quicker
a vibrator.
quickie, him or the Flash?
Well, the Flash is a human, so you don't have to feel gross about yourself afterwards, I guess.
It's got to adjust your viewpoints, adjust your parameters.
Yeah, I'm all open to furries if that's what you're into. I will say Ben
Is a
Schwartz
hedgehog a
always
furry with the spines? Where does that fall in that?
Well, they're furry. They have fur, don't they?
Well, yeah, they're kind of
That's not
fuzzy
the
on the
furry,
underside.
That's the owies.
Yeah, they're
Those
kind
are
of
the
furry on the
owies.
underside, and the underside is really the focus. So
The owie furries?
I think we call them furries still.
Just the owies.
Yeah, because the spikes would be
Yeah,
at a safe
on the back.
distance unless
On the back. You don't
going
really have
for,
to
like-
worry about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unless you're bending Sonic over, then you got to be careful. You got to pull up the spikes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and fish
That
just
sounds very dangerous.
Fish's face, his eyes,
This
whenever
is
that happened. You could tell he was thinking about it beforehand,
problem,
but hadn't considered
OSHA
that.
hazard.
Oh, hazard.
Mhm.
Well, and we'll see when there's an actual trailer. I just thought that the poster looked funny, and you can see it. I saw it at my local theater, so it's kind of funny. But I think there's a Ben Schwartz in you I trust. But I will say this: I don't normally end the show on a funny clip, but this is something you got to hear. This is Ben Schwartz being interviewed by Larry King. It's 20 seconds long. Larry King, the very old classical interviewist, and he is going to tell you what he thinks Sonic the Hedgehog should sound like.
If you wanted to be Sonic, tell me, what do you think a hedgehog would sound like?
I have no idea.
I gotta hear it, Larry. You gotta take a leap. This is your 150th episode.
How long?
That's great.
How long? I'm just a hedgehog.
That's-
No one cares about me.
Okay. That's great. That's fantastic.
That's weird. It's a weird clip. You should go find it. He's
Predictable.
like, it's strange. Yeah. Hello. This is what I think a hedgehog sound like. I like how he said no one cares about me, like all snidely too. Like he just thinks Sonic is the dumbest, most irrelevant thing in the world.
Well, to be fair, he may be tapped into the gaming community, given that opinion.
Anyways, it was a tie. Dim legs. dim legs. That's how we want to end the show, just shouting dim legs. Dim legs. We'll see you next week, dim legs, for an all new podcast. Dim legs. It's going to be game of the year. Dim legs. No one wants to join us. You guys have left me alone on all of my rants today. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I joined you for No Man's Sky and Sea of Thieves. You shut
did.
your hole.
Calm.
You shut your blowhole, sir.
All right. We'll be shutting the blowhole now, and I'll be reopening it next week for several hours on our Game of the Year show. So don't miss that as we fight for many and many hours and we wax and wane. This is what it's all about. This whole year's foreplay, we are finally going to give you the money shot for hours and hours and hours. Woo! Woo! Give me a Ric Flair, Fish. Woo!
Damn legs.
That was Ric Flair having an orgasm. All right. It's been fun. We'll see you next week. Thanks for checking out the show. We love you. And until next week, peace out.